get into the episode. For those of you watching on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, drop your comments down below, share the video with your friends, anyone that you think might be interested. It all helps with the algorithms. And for those listening on Spotify, Apple, or any of the other podcasting platforms, please follow, give us a 5-star review or any review. That also helps get the podcast out to more people on those audio platforms. So, all right, let's move on to Ipswich Town United then. Ruben Amorim's first game in charge. The Tractor Boys, Ipswich coming off a really big upset, 2-1 win at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium before the international break. If you saw that game, Johnson, I don't know if you did, but they completely deserved that. It wasn't like a smash and grab or anything. They outplayed Spurs.
They were better.
And they totally deserved it. Yeah, they totally deserved it. And I tell you what, that Liam Delap up front,
he's good,
he's
man.
An issue.
He's coming out of Man City Academy.
He's an issue.
Don't.
Yeah, he's an issue.
We can't like underestimate my man because his dad used to just throw the ball really far. He's coming out of Man City Academy. He's by far their best player. So I mean, I expect Ipswich to go down, but I do not expect him to go down. I think, a team like, I'm not going to say Bournemouth now because it looks like Evan Nilsson's looking good, but somebody that's just lost a big striker, he's a good person to look at, man. I mean, even at bloody Arsenal, I mean, I'm getting as desperate as saying, like, get me someone like him who can bloody just push people about and score. Like, that's how desperate I'm at. I went from Isak and Osherman to my man.
I don't even think that's desperate, man. I think that's just... I like him a lot, man. I think he can go really, really far. The goals I've seen him score, they're not just like brute force, shoving people out the way type goals. Like, he scored some really techie finishes where he's like skinning players and slapping them in the side net. He looks like a really, really competent modern striker where he's got speed and power and he's finishing, and he looks like he's gone and done Harry Kane drill sessions. You know what I mean? Like,
exactly.
Shots in the corners. So I know that's big praise because obviously he's nowhere near Kane in terms of his accolades or anything like that, personally speaking, when it comes to scoring and leading a team into Champions League places, etc. But I like him and I think he's a really good player. And I agree with you. I don't think he'll be at Ipswich for too long if they go down. I think someone else in the league will snap him up because he looks really handy. The rest of their team, I'm not great. I'm not like, I'm not that. I haven't been that impressed by them. I have to be honest. I watched a couple of their games early on, and they had spells in matches where they looked okay, but they just seem to not bottle it, but they seem to crumble quite a lot and let the occasion get the better of them consistently week after week. And I know they've lost a couple of 2-0 leads here and there. So who knows? Maybe that Spurs game will be the turning point for them because it's a huge win, their first win of the season, which Spurs seem to be giving out to everyone because they lost to Crystal Palace as well for their first win. So it seems to be a habit they're getting in. But I think this is going to be a really, really tough game for Amorim to have as his first kind of game in charge. But I do think it's a game where if the team play competently and they get off to a fast start, I think you can take the wind out of their sails. And I think Ipswich are not a team where I believe they're going to be like Forest, for example, where we just talked about in the previous segment, where they're going to make it really tough and we're not going to get many chances. And it's going to be, a game where you have to be really clinical. I believe we'll get chances in this game. We'll get plenty of chances. And
especially if you compress them.
Yeah.
If you guys press them really well, they stink. They're the ones that weren't they the ones that Gary Neville was like, why the hell are you trying to play it out from the back? You guys stink. I think he said it about them and Southampton, right? Like, I know that it's more in their DNA with kind of like McKenna's style, but they just don't have the quality for it at the back, really. So I think if you guys press high intensity, which I think is kind of Amorim's like MO, I think that you'll get a lot of chances. So you're going to have a really, in my opinion, have a really off day to not score 2 goals, finishing wise.
I don't know about the 2 goals point. That's funny, but I think I agree with that overall assessment though. Like I don't think we've been that bad pressing wise in the first phase. I think we've won the ball back quite a few times in opposition teams' defensive third. Our like finishing has been a big sticking point. We're right up at the top in terms of like expected goals and big chances missed. So that's been a really big problem for us. So even if we play in a similar vein to kind of how we have been under Rude, 2 or 3 games that he had in charge, even the last couple against for Ten Hag, West Ham is a good example where we had so many chances we should have been out of sight. Then I think we'll win this game, but I do think we will obviously give up chances too. Like I'm not naive. We're extremely likely to move to this 3-4-3, right? I don't expect you to have seen any of the training videos that have been going out.
No, I did.
Amorim PR, but
I did.
Yeah, all signs are pointing towards Amorim kind of adopting the same game model he had for Sporting in the last couple of seasons with the 3 centre backs and the 4 in midfield with the 2 wingers and then 2 AMs and 1 striker, because that's kind of what it looked like they were practicing in training. So let's see how it goes, but I do expect that formation change, that tactic change, and probably some personnel changes will impact us in defence as well. So I do expect us to give up some chances, and I don't think it will be smooth sailing. But a question I do want to ask you, and then I'll kind of give my 2 cents afterwards. Do you think it's more important for Amorim to get a win in his first game now against Ipswich, or do you think it would still be okay if we drew or lost the game if we saw some sort of glimpse of style of play? Because that's always obviously been a big criticism for Ten Hag when he was United manager, was that we didn't see a style of play. So what do you think is more important for Amorim in this first game?
I think style of play. I think you guys have gone through the whole results over everything with Ten Hag, right? As much as I know you guys you had a style of play, you did, but it stank, right? As you've said many times, you had a style of play, it just was poor. At least on the last, let's say, 18 months, right? So from my point of view, I think Man United fans are more so than any other fan really driven by success, right? And just win. We don't care how you do it, just bloody win. But after this kind of last 18 months with Ten Hag, I feel like you guys have gone more of the Tottenham fan way of saying, actually, I don't care if you win anything, just play better. Because it's been so poor. So from my point of view, I think the pendulum has swung back to just, I want to see some nice football. But I still think there will be a tinge of that it's got to end up with something. And I would say they would be more willing to accept it if you were playing someone like considered to be better. I know that Ipswich play decently good football and they've got players like Delap who can punish you. But I think the Ipswich name and the fact they're a promoted team, your fans will expect to have both, to play well and to win. And obviously all the PR around it, all of your fans, a lot of your fans are saying we're back, what is it? I'm ready to get hurt again, and all this kind of these jokes that you guys are making. I feel like as a result, you guys are gonna expect something. I know that you've been humbled by what has happened recently, but I still think that you've got that we've won it all mentality where you expect a lot from your managers immediately. So, especially with the training videos going around and everyone trying to break them down and use them to say why Amorim's so great, I will imagine that you will expect something good from him. So from my point of view, the only way you can get away with not winning the game and seeing improvement is if you see improvement, but one of your players just has an absolute stinker. Because then your fans will just say, "Oh, it's bloody Casemiro again. Oh, it's so and so again. He's made a hash of it, or he's put in a stinker." That Amorim can get away with, Like if Ugarte misplaces a pass and there's nothing that De Ligt or Onan or anyone else can do about it, and Delap just slaps onto the back of the net, I feel like Amorim will get away with that. But if it's like a breakdown, if it's like defensively you look stinky, or the style of play doesn't look good and you end up losing or drawing, I do think there will be some groans. I'm not going to say that people are going to beat Amorim out or anything crazy like that, but there will be some groans. So That's the only way I see him getting out of this if it's not a positive result, without the groans.
I hear you, man. I pretty much agree with your point. I think the reason why people were really hung up about this style of play thing, it wasn't even because I think United fans are snobs about wanting to see beautiful football. I think a lot of United fans under Sir Alex Ferguson accepted when we needed to change our style, accepted when we didn't play the most glamorous football because it was kind of a needs must. So I don't think it's like there are a lot of teams out there that say the United way or the Arsenal way or the West Ham way or whatever. I don't believe in that, but I think what's happened is, like you said earlier, we had a really bad, illogical style of play before with Ten Hag, where it was obvious we were getting punished week in, week out. And even when we got wins, it was obvious that there was something broken with the model and it wasn't getting the best out of our players. And so when it went bad, it went all-time Hall of Fame stinky bad. 7-0, 4-0, etc. Humiliation settings. When it went well, we could get wins against big teams. Beaten City, we beat you a couple of times, we beat Liverpool a couple of times. We had big wins, beat Barcelona obviously in the Europa League. So there were times when it worked, but when it went wrong, it just went really wrong. And I think what we want from Amorim is someone to come in and have a stable style of play and a style of play that isn't going to feel so vulnerable. And I think that's the key, because a lot of people hid behind Ten Hag's no style of play, that United don't have a style of play. It was just lazy analysis. It was so lazy. It was people were just coming to that conclusion because it didn't fit in with an idea they had of football. But the truth was it was crap and it was broken. And a lot of us non-footballing people outside the industry could watch it and go, this doesn't make sense. It's not working. If we can work that out, that gives no confidence in your manager that's getting paid tens of millions of pounds to try and get success with your team. And some would argue, and like he argued till his last few, figurative breaths as United manager, I won trophies and all this kind of stuff. Great, you won a couple trophies, and we were happy for it, and we backed him all the way to the hill with those trophies. But it wasn't just success. We also got those humblings in the league. Last season we were abysmal. In the Champions League we were abysmal. So it was clearly not working. All signs pointing to it not working. This season, in the first 7 games or whatever he had, it wasn't working. So with Amorim, I think the key is have a stable style of play and, for God's sake, stick to it. Don't fold when you start getting pressed and say all kinds of rubbish, because then we don't have confidence that you have confidence in your style of play. So me seeing those videos, of course I'm buying in and drinking the Amorim Kool-Aid and going, yeah, look at my manager. He's still trying to, he's trying to do this. He's inspiring the players. The biggest thing I took from it was just joy that he was going with the same style and the same formation and game model that he'd been employing in Sporting, because that shows that's something he really believes in, and that's what he wants to bring to United, and not try and say, United is a team of wingers and counter-attack and all this kind of stuff, because that's reductionary. That's not the truth. We had lots of styles of play, and we now will need to adopt his style of play because that's his vision, right? He can honour the club and the team in other ways, but if he believes this is the way to go forward, that's going to work, man, just stick to it. Stick to your guns and stick to your convictions with what you believe in. And like I said to you before, the other things are more important to me as well when it comes to the character of the manager, his intangibles, like the fact that he seems more personable, doesn't seem like a robot, he doesn't seem stiff, he's got a bit of charisma.
He doesn't seem to lie through his teeth constantly.
Like yeah.
I told you. I remember I told you this. I told you at the beginning. Eric Ten Hag, he might be a tactical genius, as Benny McCarthy was saying, but he was full of crap, man. Like in terms of his, his demeanor in front of the media, the fact that he just like not lied, but he just seemed to kind of omit the truth or completely switch things around, it doesn't go well, man. Like I know that you've got to be somewhere in between the radical honesty of a Mourinho or a Conte and just lying out or talking out your ass like Ten Hag for most of it. I know you can't be on either end of that spectrum, but like that was the thing about him that used to just make me believe, like, if you're Rashford, if you're one of these players that is relatively temperamental and you hear him just talking absolute fraff in the media constantly, like, what does it tell you about the man? Right. And it's very clear now that he was a poor communicator. And from my point of view, that's what is going to be the biggest thing here. I think he needs to be a pretty good tactician, but he needs to be an excellent man manager. And that is the key, right? If you look at the most successful managers you've had over the last, 10, 15 years, I think you could probably argue Oli did a pretty good job. Mourinho did a decently good job. And if you think about it, like, in my opinion, Oli was the best man manager, but he just wasn't good enough tactically. Right. And then you had people like Van Gaal who were really good tactically, but poor man managers. And then in the case of Jose Mourinho and like how he treated Schweinsteiger and all this other stuff, like, you had some poor man management. And I think you just need a guy that can just treat your players nicely. They are temperamental guys. You've got a lot of youngsters in that squad now as well. You need a young guy that's relatable, that's nice, that's smiley, that can get people on side and inspire them. And I feel like, not to drink the Kool-Aid myself, but I feel like he seems more of that ilk than Ten Hag did. So I think that bodes well for your team, and I think that will be probably the key to him sticking around.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, man. I think a lot of people go through our managerial history post Alex Ferguson and say, Gary Neville loves to do this. You've had this manager, you've had that one, you've had this one, you've had that one. It's never going to change. But I do see clear distinctions between all the managers we've had. And I don't think we've had an Amorim yet. Now, while people compare Ten Hag before he joined United to Amorim in terms of their CVs, I'm talking about the manager, the character, right?
Yeah.
I think if you look at who we've had, Moyes is not like this.
No character.
Van Gaal most certainly is not like this. Prime Mourinho was like this, but when we got him, he wasn't prime Mourinho. He was more wise in the tooth, long in the tooth, a bit wiser, also a bit more jaded. So his man management skills had changed and he'd become a bit, harsher, as you saw with his treatment of Schweinsteiger. But also
they all had to deal with prime Glazers too, right? Like,
yeah, exactly,
Amorim is not going to have to deal with prime Glazer madness. Right, I saw this figure the other day that showed the amount of investment both in transfer fees and in other things like stadiums and so on. And you guys were like the lowest in terms of the amount invested into that team. It's mental. So, he's not going to have to deal with that. So hopefully he doesn't get as jaded as quickly. Because if I was Mourinho, it's like Conte at Spurs, right? Having to deal with Levy. It's Mourinho having to deal with the Glazers. Like, those guys don't last long. So he's younger, he's fresher, he hasn't had to deal with this madness. Maybe he will do better as well with all the the footballing structure you guys have got.
Yeah, I mean that's an extra point for me. I agree with that as well. It's obviously he's under different management. I actually think Mourinho was kind of jaded before he even got to United anyway, though.
Oh yeah,
through the experience at Madrid when everything crumbled, the Chelsea second stint with the physio and all that drama. Like he had gone through some things. So I think the Glazers being there was the cherry and icing on top that just tipped him over the edge, I think, which has kind of led him down where his kind of career's gone, since. And I love Mourinho. I still love him to this day, right? I think he's been our best manager post Fergie, but just generally as a character, I love him. I think he's, football needs characters like that. But yeah, he was the way he was. And then the next manager, Oli, was the antidote. Like you said, I don't even know tactically if he was that poor. I just feel like he had the original United of Fergie DNA, and he was like, I'm not going to allow us to just sit back and be counter-attacking all the time. We're Man United. We have to go after them. And I feel like he knew he didn't have the players for it, but at some point, he said it on the overlap thing, we had to take the next step, and we had to just see where we were against these good teams, playing open football. And he got thrown under the bus, I'll be perfectly honest with you, because the players weren't capable of doing it. But I don't think he was the long-term plan anyway. And then Ten Hag, I honestly feel like with that shootout, if we had got Pochettino at that time, Pochettino is a bit more Amorim-ish in terms of he's got charisma. He seems like, he's better with the players. When Chelsea fired him, all the players were upset. As much as they've been good under Enzo, I think they all really bought in and enjoyed Pochettino as a manager in his football. So Amorim's the first kind of manager we've had in this mold. Let's see how it goes. He's got the best setup that any of those managers have ever, had in terms of the footballing structure, the ownership model. He might have less money available to him, but I feel like that's because of the way that money's been mismanaged. But I think that's fine. I don't think we should use that as an excuse for him. And let's just see how he goes. But I agree with you. The most important thing is the man in management. It's the charisma. It's the intangible things that you need to be a successful manager that I feel like there are glimpses that he may have. So let's just see how it goes. Let's not get too giddy.
It'd also be good to see Man United become exciting again. Right? Like, Man United have historically been an exciting team to watch, right? In the same way that like Arsenal back in the day were like an exciting team to watch in terms of like the way that we used to build up, right? That was the greatest thing about Man United and Arsenal at that time. We were exciting teams to watch and you never knew what was going to happen. You could have some individual brilliance from players. You could have just some crazy team goals together, like hundreds of passes and then a beautiful finish at the end of it. And I think that's missing from Man United football, particularly over the last few years, right? It's not been, even under Ten Hag, even when you won those, the trophies, the most exciting game I can think of was just that mad game against Liverpool. Was it in the cup? Where like by the end of it, you had Bruno literally stood next to Onana, just hoofing balls up. Like that was exciting because of how open it was. And I feel like Ten Hag, the style of play was not only, in my opinion, ineffective, but it was also not exciting. Right? It would be exciting if you were the opposition fan because you'd think, "What the hell are these lot doing?" But as a Man United fan, you'd think this is not good to watch. Like, yes, you had individual bits of brilliance still, like Garnacho overhead kick and stuff. But when was the last time you can say like you put together a really, really nice team goal? Like it doesn't happen that frequently for you guys, especially considering the fact that you are Man United and you should be doing that quite frequently. So I think that's another thing. And I think Amorim, from what I see of him at Sporting, he's bloody exciting to watch in terms of that play, right? That match against Man City, for example, it's exciting, man. And if you can replicate that, but with like a higher caliber of player in terms of like starting quality, it's going to be good for the Premier League. And now with the news that bloody Pep's sticking around, I need another manager that can beat him because I'm getting sick of that bloody Spanish Carl Pilkington knocking about all the time. Just leave, man.
Go on, Carl Pilkington's travel show. Remember when he goes to China and he's eating all kind of mad stuff? It's one of my favourite episodes of that show. Carl Pilkington, that's class. But yeah, no, I agree, man. Let's see. For my sake, I hope he and United fans' sake, I hope he adds to the rich kind of tapestry of managers that we have in the league. And like you said, we need. It's a group effort. Which one of us manages to win the league and take it off City, I don't know at this point. And I'll obviously be upset if it's Liverpool, or I'll be upset if it's Arsenal, and I'll be basically upset if it's anyone not United. But I do think it's like that final boss on the classic video game where you need to just like, you might need to get your mates in to come in and everyone just like tag team them and to get them over the line, because otherwise it's just not, you're coming up against a juggernaut. But anyway, yeah, this game I think it'll be
the Royal Rumble. It's like the Royal Rumble, and everyone's teaming up to get Big Show out. That's what we've got to do, and then we'll get back to fighting each other afterwards. Yeah. But let's just get Big Show and his bald head out.
Yeah, I remember those Royal Rumbles. Those were class, man. You just see every fighter in there just all gang up to try and throw Big Show over the ropes and then come back to fighting each other. But no, I think it'll be a good game. I think it'll be interesting. I think it will be exciting. I think Ipswich will give up loads of chances. We'll give up some chances. And it will come down to who has the individual bit of quality, which we should come out on top in that case. But obviously Ipswich is recent game against Spurs shows that it's not always going to be the case. But yeah, I'm going to go for United to win 3-1. But I mean, as with all of my predictions this season, it could go anyway. What about you, Johns? What do you think the game will look like in terms of the scoreline?
I'm going to go Man United 2-0. I think you're going to have a bit of a new manager bounce. I think you guys were pretty decent under Ruud van Nistelrooy. I think you've got like some guys coming back in terms of Yoro, Luke Shaw. I don't know if they'll necessarily start, but you've got guys coming back. You've had a rest in terms of international football, and you've got the high of Amorim coming back in, and yeah, as much as like we talked about Delap and that, I don't think there's much in this Ipswich team outside of him. So yeah, there could be some like individual kind of brilliance from him, but I think you guys will have enough to maybe come away with a 2-0 win.
Yeah, I agree. I think the only reason why I've gone for a slightly higher scoring game is just because I don't know if we'll come out with a clean sheet. I think Amorim will be forgiven for conceding a goal or two if we come out with the W, considering we're changing formation and game model and all that kind of stuff. It might not go flawlessly, but you could be right. Ipswich are not a guarantee to convert their chances either, as well as Delap's playing. They haven't really got too much of a threat outside of him. Maybe Amari Hutchinson, but they haven't got
Smodjic.
too much more going forward.
Smodjic's
decent as well. Yeah,
he's okay. He's got a few goals this year already, so maybe him. But then they've got dons like Morsey in there who are just like Sunday league footballers, basically. So you never know what's going to happen.
Ipswich are a funny team, man. You've got to give respect to McKenna getting them up, because I know this season they've bought a few players, but the double promotion they did basically with the same team they had in League One. So shout out to them.
Yeah.
All right, let's wrap up that preview segment.